Hi, I'm Jess Lawrence and I'm a freelance copy editor. Now, normally I write blog posts about this kind of topic because I'm a writer and I don't really like how I sound on camera, but I was working on this particular post and it was starting to sound quite technical and I figured it'd be easy just to show you some of the techniques I'm talking about. I don't know if this will be a regular thing. I'm not really sure if there's a market for very low budget YouTube videos from a copy editor talking about grammar and writing and whatnot. We shall see. But the topic I wanted to cover today is using Word to write your novel, and there are a couple of tips and tricks that you may or may not be familiar with. As a side note, I use Word for Mac, so that's the tool I'm going to be showing in this video. If you use Word for PC, it's very similar. It might just be a case of slightly different wording on the buttons and things like that. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is a trick that creates a sort of contents page for your manuscript. So if you want to jump to a chapter somewhere in the middle, you don't have to scroll through 40-50 pages to get there. So first I'm going to start by making all of my chapter titles heading 2. And as a side note, it's easier if you do this while you're writing your novel, otherwise you have to go through and make these changes manually at the end. So you can see here that I have made all of my chapter titles heading 2s. So once you've done that, I'm going to go to View, Sidebar, and click Navigation, and this will open up the navigation pane, and as you can see it has pulled through all of my heading 2s. So let's say I was working on chapter 7 last night and I want to pick up where I left off. All I have to do is click on chapter 7 in the navigation pane and it takes me to exactly where it is in the document without having to scroll all the way through. And you can navigate to any one of these headings. I've decided to change the format for my chapter titles, and I'd like them to be bold, underlined, and centre aligned. But I don't want to have to do this individually for every chapter title because it would take a long time. But fortunately, there's a faster way to do it. Because I've made all of my chapter titles heading 2s, I can simply modify that particular heading. So I will right click and click Modify. And then I can come in here and I can click bold, underlined, and centre aligned. And when I click OK, it will apply those changes to each chapter title that is set to a heading 2. So you can see that all of these have been changed like so. Next, I've decided to send my manuscript to agents, but these agents have specific guidelines that they'd like all their submissions to follow. Instead of making these changes manually, I can simply update the headings again. So I'm going to go to the normal heading, which is the default for body copy, and I'm going to click Modify. Now let's say that our agent would like Times New Roman. They want it in 11-point font, and they'd like it to be double spaced. If I click OK, and you can see that it has implemented those changes throughout the entire document. The Find tool is quite simple and you've probably used it a couple of times before, but I want to show you how you can use it to find your crutch words. Now these are the words that you tend to rely on quite heavily, perhaps without even realising it. Mine are so, just, and well, and my first drafts are usually littered with them. To find these words, we're going to go to Edit, Find, and Advanced Find and Replace. And you can see I've already got the word so in my Find What box, and I'm going to click Highlight All Items Found in the main document. And then I'm going to click Find Whole Words Only. Now the reason for this is if I don't tick this box, it will also include words like also and soon. So now I'm going to click Find All, and you can see here that it has given me a count of how many times I've used the word so in this document. Now let's look at the Replace tool. You can see here I have a character named Alice, but I've decided I'd like her to be called Annie instead. Now rather than go through the document and manually change every instance of Alice to Annie, I'm going to use the Replace tool. So we're going to go to Edit, Find, Advanced Find and Replace again, and I'm going to go to the Replace tab. And in the Find What box, I'm going to put Alice and I'm going to replace it with Annie. So remember last time we talked about these checkboxes, and I want to show you why these ones are important. If I simply click Replace All here, you can see that it's changed the word Alice to Annie 32 times. And now if I go to my document, you can see here that I did have the word malice and it has changed it to Manny. So that is why you want to tick those boxes that are match whole words only or match case. This is the tool that I use most often in my job when I'm editing a piece of client work, but I also use it when I'm working on my own novel too, and it's the Track Changes feature. To turn it on, you go to the Review pane and you simply toggle it on right here. And there are a couple of features that I want to focus on, and there's the Track Changes feature and the Comments feature. So first, the Track Changes. It quite simply does what it says on the tin. It tracks every change that you make to your document. Now let's say I've decided that this sentence here is no longer necessary. If I delete it, it pulls it to the side to show exactly what's been removed. And now I want to add some extra text here, and it's put it in red so we can see exactly what's been added and exactly what's been taken away. Now, when you're done making edits to your document, you can decide whether you want to accept or reject these changes. I've decided that this extra text here isn't necessary, so I'm going to reject this change. This line here, however, doesn't need to be in the story, so I'm happy to accept this deletion. And now it's telling me that there are no more comments or track changes in the document, so I can just click OK. Now for the comments feature. This is particularly useful if you want to leave a little note to yourself as you're going through the document, or you can use it to ask questions to your beta readers. So for instance, I might put a comment here by clicking on the comment tab, and I might ask, does this dialogue sound realistic? So then I can send this document off to my beta reader, and they can reply to the comment with what they think. When you receive the document back, you can then mark the comment as done, or you can just delete it, depending on whether you want to keep a track. Custom dictionaries are particularly useful if you're writing sci-fi or fantasy and you're going to be using some non-standard words or names. You can see here that I've renamed my characters to Stee-Ran and Alice. Now I'm going to be using these characters' names quite a lot, so I don't want the red lines to keep showing up. I'm going to add these names to my dictionary. And now you can see that it has changed all instances of their names to correct. The great thing about this is if I accidentally misspell one of my character names, Word will understand that I've made a mistake and it will suggest the name I've added to the dictionary. Okay, those are my tips for using Word to write your novel. In the description box below, I will link to the original post I wrote on this topic and the new post I wrote that was getting a little bit more technical. Altogether, there are 10 tips. I've only covered 5 in this video because those were the ones I wanted to show you. The rest are a little bit more self-explanatory or easier to follow in writing. I hope you managed to take something away from this. Maybe you already knew all of these tips because you're an absolute Word genius. Let me know in the comments if it was worth your time or if you'd like to see more kind of videos like this, and I'll see what I can do. Until then, happy writing!